Hi, welcome to the Promises and Practices of Mental Health and Technology. I'll be your host today. My name is Christina Mallon, and I'm a neurodivergent inclusive designer with dual arm paralysis and generalized anxiety, leading inclusive product at Microsoft. The goal of today's talk is to provide viewers with steps on how to consider a person's mental health when creating technology. Our esteemed panelists are going to talk about their work creating technology that provides mental health support or creating technology that tries to avoid having a negative effect on people's mental health and creating mitigations to decrease disability bias in generative AI. And in addition, we've launched a free toolkit on inclusive.microsoft.design that shows you how to leverage inclusive design methodology for mental health. Our first guest today is Shipra Darwal. Please tell us a little bit more about yourself, Shipra.
Hi, I'm so glad to join this panel, Christina. I am Shipra Davar, and I am the founder and CEO of iWill. iWill is a leading digital mental health and sexual and reproductive health company from India that uses tech and AI to solve challenges of the last mile healthcare that we face in India and beyond. And I'm so glad that I could join here and talk a little bit more about my work today.
Well, we're happy to have you here. And our second guest today is Ali Benter. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, Ali.
Hi, thank you for having me here. I'm Ali Benter. I'm a senior product designer on Outlook, and I also lead the cognition and mental health V team that has produced the toolkit work. I also have PTSD and ADHD, and I grew up with family members with severe mental health conditions. So I'm really energized to be able to speak at these problems at scale and solve for them together.
Well, thank you for sharing your story, Ali. And our third guest today is Dan Van. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, Dan.
Hi, my name is Dan Van, Senior Applied Scientist here at Microsoft Research. In particular, I work in the Founder Center team at Microsoft Research in New York City. And so our team is primarily focused on trying to bridge the gap between research and product and trying to take all the great thinking that's being done from the state-of-the-art research being done at Microsoft Research and actually applying it to real product teams and product experiences being shipped to the millions of our customers here at Microsoft. So I'm glad to be here and can't wait to get started.
We're glad to have you here. Okay, so we're going to start with Shipra. I'm so interested to learn how you're using AI to provide mental health services to thousands of Indians. So would love to learn more. So please kick it off.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Christina. Just to give you a bit of a background here, 300 million plus people in India need some kind of mental health support, and yet 80% plus don't have access. We have 0.07% psychologists per 100K population, and 60% plus people who have mental health issues actually are coming from low resource settings or in rural or semi-urban areas. Now, to those stats, the contrasting factors are that we are a country which has one of the highest digital adoption, as well as 850 million plus people using smartphones, with our rural and semi-urban and urban areas of the country connected with high-speed internet, and the infrastructure is going on the outside. So, when you combine those facts together, the need for mental health access that is affordable, that is accessible, and with the digital adoption and the digital infrastructure, it was really a no-brainer of how we could use AI responsibly, ethically, to bring in mental health to one and all. And that really became the genesis of iWill Geeta, which is a completely controlled AI CBT model enhanced with generative AI and LLMs backed by Microsoft. And we are so thankful for Microsoft for believing in our vision. And this is in Hindi. Hindi is spoken by 615 million plus people here in India. So this is the third largest language. And we are so proud that we are the first in the world to bring in the power of generative AI in a controlled CBD model in language Hindi for the people of India for solving mild mental health issues. So this is a completely AI-based CBD chatbot that really caters to mild mental health issues. But should there be any severe concerns, it very seamlessly so alerts it, and then a human therapist could take over. So there is a human in loop in this process. So I will Gita, really the acronym for that, I mean, it's an acronym for a generative AI inclusive therapy assistant, but it has a deeper cultural meaning. Gita is one of the most profound texts where Lord Krishna is talking to his disciple Arjun, who's basically riddled with doubt, with self, confidence issues, and guilt, and then how he helps him to really quell self-doubt and also realize that life is to be in the present, to be mindful. It's really one text that brings it all together in terms of how you can live to your fullest potential. So with that name, we bring in the cultural aspect of really looking, toward taking care of your mental health and being in the present and being mindful. So bringing those two together is how we've created I Will Gita. It's completely scientific, CBT based. The early results of I Will Gita, which we just launched in January 2024, are super promising. Already 3,500 and plus people have used it, and 98% people felt that they were genuinely talking like to a real therapist. And also what they loved was the fact that it was very controlled and that it didn't lead to hallucinations, or it was, not leading to a place where it feels like the machine is overtaking the role of where it should be. So we're very glad for what we've built, but it's just the starting. So with that, I will just take you through the live demo of I Will Gita. We're just getting started here, and we're putting it out there through this great summit to all of you of what we've built, and I hope that you like what you see. So here's to I Will Gita demo.
As you can see, it starts with introducing what the sessions will look like, that there will be 6 sessions, and that it is here to help a person, with their mental or emotional health issues. And it also helps really reconfirm that the person has come here for emotional health support for mild issues. And then it goes on to ask the first question, which is very key, and that is to understand the situational trigger that may be impacting the person and may be causing or may be affecting their emotional and mental health at the time. And in this case, the person responds that they've lost their job, and that is causing them a little feeling of shame. Now here is where we've used generative Gita LLM models that we have, specifically created for this, using Azure OpenAI, and it very empathically responds that I can understand that this situation may be tough for you, but you can really restart, and that you have time, and that you have ability, and that you have the experience. And maybe it, takes times, but this will also give you an opportunity to look at new areas and new ideas. You need to continue having confidence on yourself, and, need a support system at this time, and you will be out of this situation. So look at how empathic its response was. It tried to help the person feel that it understands their situation just like a human therapist would. And also in the same way, it kind of leads to what could be the future like. And then it then reconfirms and asks what more about the situation does the person want to share. And they then say that I feel I'm not, talented enough or capable enough, because that's why I've lost my job. And it very empathically, again, through, the use of LLMs, specifically Gita LLM models that we've created for emotional health, responds that, no, it's not that you are not, capable. It is indeed courageous of you to come and talk about it, and and we can all learn from our mistakes and we can move forward. You have to keep faith in yourself, and you have to understand your unique capabilities, and you will find a better job, and that's where you have to strive for. And then it further goes on to ask about their emotional feelings at this point in time. Again, these are Gita LLM models that it is using. So, and then it very empathically, when the person says that I feel shame, it responds again empathically that they don't need to feel that shame, and also suggests some good tips right there, and also tells that the bot is with the person, that the I Will Gita is with them, and everything will eventually get better, as you can see. And this is just the first session. It continues in this way until week 6, and it follows a structure. The first session is really about understanding the situations, the emotions, and the thoughts behind it. Simple thought work accompanies it. And then the second session is going deeper into emotions. Third goes deeper into thoughts. Fourth is about behavioral changes and action. Fifth is again about that behavioral changes in action. And sixth is a session that binds it all together and brings it to resilience. Along with these the AI-led conversation, there are toolboxes. Of course, these are introduced in the chat while a person is chatting, but also a person can come back and always do these exercises as part of each of the session, and then they can also track their scores. So in this case, the user already who started with mild mental health issue has gone back to having negligible issues of depression as measured on PHQ-9 scale. So this is a great companion, built in Hindi, built in local language, not on translated data, but absolutely in pure spoken Hindi as it is. And 615 million users use Hindi, and I Will Gita is really the future of how mental health care will be accessed in India and beyond.
That was an amazing video. Thank you so much
Incredible.
for sharing.
Thank you so much. And we're just getting started. This is currently in text, but we want to include voice and video next, and leverage the full power of generative AI, but in controlled clinical flows. And currently, this is available in Hindi, but we will be going more local languages for India and beyond. Look, our vision really is here to solve for the last mile challenges of access to mental health care. We want to solve for equity, we want to solve for affordability, and we want to solve for accessibility. I Will Gita currently reduce the cost of mental health at 1/4 of the current cost models. And we are already working with several governments in India to bring this to people who really need access to it. So once again, I'm really proud of the work that the team at I Will has done, but I'm also extremely grateful to Microsoft for supporting our vision, really to help build a product that kind of takes AI to its full potential in managing mental health care for those who most need it. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity today to me to really talk about the work that we've done. And I just want to say that we've gotten just started here. Thank you so much, Christina.
Amazing. And I'm excited to even learn more about it as we go through the session today. But what I've heard sounds really cool. And hopefully one day you can bring it to the States where I'm located.
Yes, absolutely. That's the idea.
Awesome. So we're going to hand over to Ali. So as a product designer, I'd love to ask how design affects mental health.
Design affects mental health so much. We as product makers really have a great responsibility. The same way people that produce food really care about what they put in your food because it affects your physical health, we as product makers need to feel that same responsibility because our products impact the way people think, the way they act, and the way they feel inside, which is all about mental health. And so we can think about it like on a couple different realms. And when we started this effort, it was about Outlook and creating features in Outlook that really can benefit mental health. For example, Outlook Mobile is amazing. It helps people work wherever, whenever, but that also comes with the consequence of working all the time. And that can lead to burnout, which a lot of us are feeling, especially in a hybrid world. And so we kind of went into this effort. How do we create better boundaries for people? And then that really turned into, there are a lot of design patterns in general that are common stressors. So we did a bunch of research, focus groups, read through publications to figure out what are the common stressors in design that affect mental health? A big one is notifications and pop-ups. And so, for example, if I'm looking at something and it pops up at me to use a feature, it doesn't feel as helpful as if it waited for me looking at the screen and then there's something in the corner that's more suggestive to use the feature. The perception that it helped is a lot greater. For AI is a huge potential to help mental health. People have said, why can't I just tell AI what I'm struggling with and it feeds me back? But if I'm blowing a bunch of suggestions in your face to maybe assign yourself a new task, you can see how that can negatively impact mental health. Settings is huge. It's really important for people to feel in control of their systems. So we don't want to have people go dig through settings in a way that we organize them to maybe not be able to control their technology. Instead, we want to put settings icons on every feature so they can control it within their flow. Then there's the atomic level, colors, motion, content. And we realize there's a lot of work to do there. And we're working with Fluent to go do that work. So it's embedded in all of our Microsoft products and all of the people that use Fluent externally as well. For example, the color red in our badge system. We've did a lot of research that shows red could be addicting, and also it could be harmful because it breaks people out of flow to go check something that might not be as important. So can we shift it to be only red when there is something urgent, like you've been mentioned, and blue for the rest of time? Another thing to really mention in product design is the way that we measure success. We measure success through engagement quantitatively. How much a user uses our app equals success. And that is not good for mental health. As a design society, before we used to pedalize addictive design patterns, there's books called Hooked, because that's the way that people are going to use our apps the most, see our ads, and that we as a business reach success. But we really need to take a step back and think about the implications for mental health. The good news is that there's a ton of opportunity here to improve, and mental health is the leading disability in the world, where 1 in 4 Americans have a mental health condition. It's worsened during the pandemic. It's worsened for younger generations with their influx of notifications and news around the world. And so we can really step up and improve mental health and well-being and focus for all.
I love that. And I feel like all the things we were talking about, I wish were in met like all my technology, especially as someone with generalized anxiety. Could you dig a little bit into like how product teams are using AI to reduce cognitive load?
Yeah, definitely. So Copilot is Microsoft's big new feature that's coming out that's integrating generative AI into all of our products. And so on the Outlook team, we did a 1-month-long study of Copilot and users with mental health conditions, as well as neurodiverse conditions. And we discovered a lot of great insights about how Copilot definitely helps mental health because of its impact on cognitive load, but also because of the reassurance that it provides people. It really feels like a co-pilot. It's not like the AI is just doing everything for me. It's feeling like that helper alongside that's helping you do your best work. And so, for example, in Outlook, there's features that help you summarize long email threads. Long email threads are really hard, and it's really nerve-wracking to respond to a lot of people in a thread when there's all of these different perspectives and opinions. And so having that summarization, that kind of reassures you what you're reading. You can kind of fact check through citations in the summarization. That is a reduction on cognitive load, and therefore improves your capabilities and your confidence through communicating back to that group. Coaching is another feature in Outlook Copilot that tested really well. It was a fan favorite, and that's because of the education it provides people. Someone with bipolar disorder mentioned that he's getting a lot of feedback from his manager that he's passive aggressive, and that's really concerning his job security. And coaching actually really helped him with his tonality and helped him become a better writer because of the suggestions it applied. On the latter, we kind of with coaching, we're just giving feedback, and the mental health group through inclusive design made us realize that we should also give positive affirmations in the way that we coach, which is really useful, not just with people with conditions, but for everyone. And the last feature that Copilot and Outlook really helped with is drafting. And drafting is really useful because it helps that blank page syndrome. Sometimes with mental health or cognition, there's a decreased sense of executive functioning. You don't know what you're working on. You don't know if you're good at your job. And you kind of pause before thinking. And the way that you can just draft helps with that task initiation. And the more that we can help people do these things to get started and kind of bridge their flows together and make them finish their flows, the more that we can celebrate their success. Having that moment of celebrating their success at the end of task completion is really like the gas pedal on flow. It really makes people feel capable and confident. And Copilot is really helping do all of those things.
Amazing. And what I think is also really interesting is how, you as someone with a mental health condition and leading the V team for the mental health toolkit, you were able to work with the Outlook teams that were working on Copilot to really take some of the guidelines from the mental health toolkit and put it into the product before launch. And then you're going back and doing this research to add additional features and tweaks to ensure that the guidelines really are applied, and you're working with teams with mental health conditions at Microsoft to really push the product forward, which I just think is so cool, and love the co-design.
Yeah, Outlook has been an amazing kind of case study to really help us bring inclusive design for mental health and cognition into our product. They've been really receptive to kind of all of the inclusive research and feeding those insights back into the product. And it's all twofold. The insights that we get from the research also feed back into that general kind of guidance for AI assistance. Also in the plugin, you'll see, and the guidance, you'll see kind of customer voice for AI assistance, which will help build empathy when you're thinking about kind of how to use them and build your products. So vice versa, it's really was such a great collaboration with the Copilot team.
Yeah. And what I thought was interesting, not everybody uses Figma, so that you also created a PDF that will be on inclusive.microsoft.design that talks about the different patterns for non-Figma users.
Yes, the V team really prioritized creating an accessible PDF. Figma is not totally accessible for everyone. And as an inclusive design team, that's really, really important. And also, this doesn't just need to be for software designers. This could be for anyone really thinking about product and that wants to learn more.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Ali. Dan, so we talked about examples of how AI can be used to improve mental health. Given that large language models are mostly built on data from the internet, and sometimes the internet can be biased, there's a potential for platforms using AI to generate harmful content, which could affect someone's mental health. In your role, you work to reduce harm to the users of Microsoft's Copilot. Can you share more about how you're creating scalable ways to identify, measure, and mitigate these possible harms?
Yes, definitely. So first, let me take a step back and give an overview of the responsible AI principles here at Microsoft. So Microsoft has done a lot to be an industry leader with responsible AI. I know I personally got started with responsible AI back in 2016 in the aftermath of the Tay chatbot, right? And if you don't know about Tay, you should go look it up. It's a fun read when you want to do. But I think that since Microsoft has been in this area for so long, it's done a really great job of establishing principles when it comes to responsible AI. And these principles have led to the responsible AI standard and governance program that allows us to put these responsible AI principles into practice. And so at a high level, there's 6 different principles that Microsoft has for the responsible AI principles, and they are transparency, privacy and security, reliability and safety, accountability, fairness, and inclusiveness. And so these are online, so you should read about them. And I think it'd be very useful to learn about them. In particular, the principle I want to talk about is fairness, because I think it ties really closely to what we've been talking about here and what you asked about, Christina. And so what the fairness principle is that we do our part to try to reduce unfairness in our society using our AI products and technologies, rather than keeping things the same or even making them worse in some cases. And the way we do this is we try to minimize something called representational harms. And what representational harms are is that we try to do things like, minimize the cases where we do unfair generalizations of different groups of people. We produce text or images or outputs that demean people, and by that I mean it causes a significant loss of dignity or respect. And then also we want to make sure that when we depict people, we don't overrepresent, underrepresent, or at times even fail to depict different groups of people, right? And so representational harms, as part of the fairness principle, really touches on making sure that everyone is represented the same, or fairly, I should say. And so dealing with these different types of representational harms doesn't just involve taking actions to make sure we prevent these harms from occurring, but we also need to make sure we understand these harms at a deep level. And so what this looks like is we go through the process of working with research, product, and policy teams to actually create a taxonomy of harms that are relevant to the things we want to prevent in our systems. And then after we establish what those harms are, we take it a step further and we actually try to conceptualize these harms by reviewing literature, involving different types of linguistics, and actually we learn from real product incidents as well. And so by doing this conceptualization, it allows us to formalize these harms in a way that's systematic and grounded, and allows us to figure out a good way to deal with them. And so I think that from the principles and applying it to actual practice, and then actually trying to solidify how we want to deal with these harms, it allows us to have the foundation or a framework for us to actually go and try to address these harms in products.
So interesting. And what you didn't talk about, but I think you're just, you're being too humble, is how your team really worked with the disability team at Microsoft to understand these real world examples. So the co-design and then the cross-functional team that you had across product, policy, and research, and then bringing in the accessibility and disability team to understand these real world scenarios is not really done at many organizations. And we were really impressed because we really felt like the openness to understand that you don't know certain things and wanted to work with the communities that might be affected. And I think that kind of working of how you're working is going to be needed to be done across AI altogether.
Yes, I think that piece you just talked about is really important. And I think that before I talk specifically how our collaboration has worked well, I think I should give some more context into how we're actually identifying, measuring, and mitigating problems here at Microsoft, and talk about how the specific collaboration with subject matter experts and employee resource groups, or ERGs, really helps address that. So
yeah, I would love for you to dig in.
Yeah. So at a high level, there's three main areas that we're really attacking to try to evaluate these AI systems for representational harms. And so I'll talk about how we do it in general, and then I'll talk specifically about how our collaboration with disability and mental health is really crucial and fundamental to what we're trying to do. And so the first part of our process of evaluating is identifying issues, and we do this through red teaming. So red teaming isn't just, hey, we try what we want to and see what sticks and just hope that we come across bad things. We actually have a thoughtful process that really does a good job of highlighting areas of concern. And then from those instances of harm that we identify, we go into measurement. So measurement is based off those issues we find, and we actually try to come up with meaningful, scalable, and automated ways to actually evaluate our AI products. And what this allows us to do with these measurements is we actually can surface different gaps in our system. We are able to use it to help estimate risk. And we actually can track relative improvements over time. So as we identify issues and we try to fix them, we can make sure that things are working as expected. And the last piece is iterating on mitigations. And so we take the testing we did with our identification and our measurements, and we actually try to create effective and robust safeguards in our AI systems, right? And so my team in particular has been focused on creating measurements. And that it looks like creating tools, resources, and best practices that allow different product teams at Microsoft to actually address these harms. And so when we were talking about the work we did for disability, I think one important thing is making sure that we understand how to define the harms. Yeah. And in particular, drawing from the perspectives, lived experiences, and expertise and concerns from people from your group and from the disability and mental health community as a whole, helps us to understand that the harms that are not only unique for the disability community, like ableism, but also understand how these harms that are somewhat common manifest specifically for the disability community, like slurs that are specific to the disability community, right? And so I think that once we have those pieces in place, we can then help teams create different input data sets that allow us to measure how these social technical problems actually surface up in actual product teams, right? And so you imagine if we deal with things like Bing Chat or Designer, where there's different ways these AI technologies are being used, the way that these harms may surface up in those products and scenarios need to be customized and tailored, right? And so once we have the measurement sets in place, we've worked with product and research to actually create a way to automatically, take a set of inputs, test against the AI product, and get a data set that we can use to evaluate, how well the system is dealing with these different types of harms. And so what we've done is we actually created different annotation guidelines. I know your team was fundamental in making sure that these guidelines are very comprehensive, or try to be comprehensive enough to cover different ways that harms may affect different groups of people. So I know that we worked really closely for disability and to make sure that the guidelines that we use to evaluate whether or not harms are in our systems is very tailored and nuanced to cover the different types of harms that affect different communities and groups of people. And so these guidelines are not only used by human experts, but they've been augmented with large language models like GPT-4 to help us scale this evaluation and to make sure that things are still grounded and consistent. And so I think that the measurements I talked about and the way we talk about identification and mitigations is really important, because I think that working with groups like your group, Christina, helps us really understand these harms and how they affect different groups of people, and that we're prioritizing them properly, right? We want to make sure that not only do we know that we need to take these groups into consideration when we're developing our products, we need to make sure we have correct coverage. So we're using the correct terms, we have the correct types of inputs, we have the correct guidelines. And I think this healthy relationship and dialogue with your group and other groups here at Microsoft dealing with responsible AI allows us to be really good at adapting to changes. So not only as these technologies changes, and we need to keep up with the technology, but also as the harms and issues and concerns that are top of mind for people in the disability community or people who are going to be using our product with disabilities, we can make sure that our principles, evaluations, and safeguards still stay in line with those harms, and we have confidence that we're doing what we need to do in the correct way.
Yeah, and we have confidence too, just looking at some of the numbers and the tests to really measure. I've seen great change with your team and the partnership to ensure that we are bridging the disability divide. And it's so amazing to hear the three of you just talk about how with technology, you're keeping people and their needs at the center of all that you do. I'd love to understand, and this is really for the three of you, and we'll start first with Shipra, then Ali, and then Dan. How are some ways that non-technical and technical individuals can help? People love the work that you're doing. When I talk to, grandma at the dinner table to a stranger in the street, but they want to know how they can help. So I was wondering if each of you could give a suggestion to our viewers to see how they can help you in your missions with whatever you want to do.
That's a great question. And, technology is really for everyone. And how do we, when we are creating supportive tools that actually help people who are dealing with these challenges? They may be from all sorts of backgrounds. Like you rightfully said, an elderly population is dealing with mental health issues. I mean, a young child is dealing with mental health issues. And so really the way AI is being built, and I think that's the partnership I've seen with Microsoft and Azure AI and AI4A, we've built in for accessibility. We've built in to bring in the voice of the last person in, and we've followed the co-design principles. And the way we are taking our product as well, we are taking it directly to communities, and we're physically also present there. We're kind of taking them up through the digital literacy of using the products and really start the charter and talk around how mental health is important, how tools like these are available, and how technology is really not anymore a tool reserved for few, but it's really something that democratizes access to the very basic necessities such as mental health care. And talking in the context of India, when we were doing our pilot, I mean, there was a woman who was 60-year-old from a village who used this product. And, what was so profound about the feedback that she said was that for the first time in my life, I feel like I can still do something, and opening up those kind of conversations, and she talking about it in her peer groups, which will be, of course, ladies and men of village. This can open up really a whole new world of where there was no access to healthcare. And I'm speaking for healthcare, but really financial inclusion, really all other areas. It just opens up. So it's important to take technology to the last mile, but it's also important to bring in the voice back to technology so that we're not speaking as two different poles, but really working together one common goal, which is to understand and make it work for the humans, really.
No, that's amazing advice, especially useful for any of the product designers that are on the phone. But also, want to ask, make sure to share about iWomb on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. Really share about their mission, because what is amazing, and I can't wait for you to come to the US so I can use it. So, Ali, what about you? How can someone, that's tuning in, that's maybe technical or even non-technical, like help with your product and your mission and what you're trying to achieve?
Thank you. Yeah, I think the first thing, like you said, is be an advocate, like really share about the product and be an ally for inclusion and mental health and cognition by sharing the toolkit, trying out the guidelines. Give us feedback as a V team to continuously prove and make our resources better. This is the first time anyone has attempted something like this, and we did our best, but we know there's a ton of room and opportunity to improve and a lot where we want to go with it. So please give feedback as you're using it. The second thing is really give feedback for your products that you're using. Being on Outlook, we listen to our products, and people, especially with conditions, feel like it's them, so they don't feel as empowered to be the ones to give the feedback. And say you have a condition, like we are really listening on the product team, and we want to create an inclusive product for everyone. And the third thing I would say is really talk about mental health. There was a big stigma behind it. And I think everyone in their life has experienced mental health at some point. And so in this project, when we talk about people with conditions and inclusive design, it's permanent, situational, or temporary. And there's really kind of a flux in between that, because you can understand what it's like to suffer with something permanently because you've been there before temporarily. And so the more that we can talk about that, the more inclusive of a community we can create and solve for these problems together.
Amazing, Ali. And as Ali mentioned, you should be able to provide feedback within the actual feature to the Microsoft team. But if you can't find that, feel free to email me at cmallon@microsoft.com, and I'll get the feedback over to Ali and the teams. So last but not least, Dan, would love to hear from you how, non-technical and technical individuals can help you on your mission and your work.
Yeah, I think the problem with going last is that everyone says the great ideas. And so I'll plus one at everything else that everyone else has said. But I think that the part about giving feedback is so fundamental and crucial. I think especially with the nature of these technologies, with them being so intuitive and so accessible to everyone, that it really not only makes it so more people can use it, but there might be different ways that these issues can surface with a more diverse set of users. And when I say diverse, I don't mean just demographic factor. I mean diversity with lived experience, perspective, background, even thoughts. And so I think that giving that feedback as these products reach more and more people is going to be very, very crucial. So I know that I have a 7-year-old daughter, which is why I'm in the corner with my headphones on, so she can be noisy. She hasn't gone to bed yet. But I think that one thing I realized is that technologies, like that we're working on here at Microsoft will enable her to do a lot, but also expose her to different ways that the products may not work properly for her. I want to live in a world where not only she can be empowered by these technologies, but she can also have a voice as far as getting them fixed. So I think the big thing was like what Ali and others have said, if you see a problem, report it. And I think that we really want to learn from our users and actually make it so that our users don't have to conform to our technologies. Our technologies empower our customers and users, right? And I think that be able to have that feedback and be able to learn from that and understand how we can incorporate those issues that are raised and reported into our evaluations, how we think about these issues and harms, and actually how we can address those is going to be fundamental and just a very important piece. And also engaging with communities and figure out how to engage with those communities as we move forward, and having ideas for how to engage with those communities are going to be tremendous as far as addressing these problems moving forward.
Definitely. And I swear, in the Copilot feature, there is a thumbs up, thumbs down feature, and that feedback gets directly to the team. So anyone, technical or non-technical, can definitely provide insight in that way. Unfortunately and painfully, we're out of time. We're going to have to wrap. But remember, please help our 3 panelists with their missions and with their tips on how to help with their missions. Also, go to inclusive.microsoft.design to download the new Inclusive Design Toolkit for Mental Health that dropped today. I want to give a big thank you to our presenters and a big thank you to you viewers for taking the time out to learn how you can help ensure that mental health is considered in product design. Thanks all.